Hey everyone, this is Pete, and welcome back to Short Play, a series of quick tours of games I like on a variety of platforms, new and old. Today we're looking at Joust 2, Survival of the Fittest, which was a 1986 sequel to Williams' 1982 title Joust, and a sequel that a lot of people don't seem to know exists. So the game keeps the core formula of Joust, but replaces the endless waves with the gradually crumbling away stage with discrete levels featuring more detailed graphics and greater variety in the encounters. And the additional graphical detail allowed for more creativity in the level design and the backdrops, which meant that the designer John Newcomer was able to pay homage to his favourite artist MC Escher, so see if you can spot some of those in the backdrops. Unfortunately, the game didn't do all that well, and it only shipped a few thousand units to the arcades, didn't get many home ports, and one of the few ways you can experience it reliably today is on the Midway Arcade Treasures collection for PlayStation 2, Xbox and possibly GameCube as well, I forget. But anyway, the original cabinets for Joust 2 are highly sought after by collectors these days, so if you want to play it for yourself, probably best to just pick up a PS2 and a copy of Midway Arcade Treasures, which is what we're going to do today. So, let's go play Joust 2.
Okay, here we are with Joust 2, the sequel to Joust, obviously. This is a game that I like very much. I mean, I like the original Joust a lot. But the first time I played Midway Arcade Treasures, which is the collection on which we're playing this right now, I was really excited to discover this because I had no idea it existed prior to playing this for the first time. And while I'd maybe hesitate to say that it's necessarily better than Joust, because they both have their appeal, it certainly provides a different experience and is a good sequel. And a sequel that no one knows about is always interesting to see. So if you've never played Joust before, it is a game where you ride an ostrich-like creature, and your job is to dispatch all of the buzzard-riding knights who are your rivals. Whoops. And the way you do that is by knocking them off by jousting with them. Technically, you do that by being at a higher level with them and striking them with your lance, but in practice, what you spend most of your time doing is smacking other birds with your arse. Oh dear. It's been a while since I played this, so yeah, not doing too well. We do have a continue system though, which is not something that was present in the original Joust. Oh god. This is pretty disastrous so far. We got a bonus down there. Yeah, too late for it. So the main enhancements to this over the original Joust formula are... oh god. the presentation is the main thing. So the original Joust was pretty simple in terms of presentation. Deliberately so. Partly due to limitations of technology at the time, and partly as a distinct aesthetic choice. So the original Joust unfolded on a single stage that gradually changed and adapted as you played through the game. So, as you progress through the various waves... oh god, I'm terrible at this. As you progress through the various waves, platforms would disappear, and different types of enemies would start to appear, and the lava pits that you see at the bottom of the screen here, that would open up, and things would start trying to grab you out of the lava pit and all sorts of things like that. So it was a really elegant, simple piece of game design that just sort of gradually grew in complexity and challenge as you played through it. And it was really rewarding because it was one of those arcade games that was straightforward to learn. I don't know if I want to say simple, because the controls in Joust certainly take a bit of getting used to. It's all very momentum based in terms of your horizontal movement, and then you have to press the flap button to flap your wings, and that gives you your vertical speed. And so it takes a bit of time to get used to. Oh dear. Fly. Fly up, please. Thank you. And this game added a new option to the mix in terms of controls. There's a second button in this one that allows you to transform. I'm actually going to... Alright, we'll continue. The second button allows you to transform into this Pegasus type thing. Now the Pegasus can't fly very well, but supposedly it's better at combat on the ground. I don't really know entirely how that works. That's one thing I've never quite figured out about this game, is how you make good use of the Pegasus. But it is an option. And I would assume the further in the game you go, the more important it is that you figure out how to use it. So, I was talking about the key enhancements to the original Joust that this offers. The main thing is that it's got these different discrete levels now. I might actually start from the beginning again, just because I think I think I need a little bit more practice. So let's just let that timer expire. There we go. The game is over. Enter your initials. P J D. Right. So yes, the big change in this version of Joust is that instead of the one level gradually changing and morphing as you made it through the different waves, is now you've got all these discrete stages that are all designed individually and all have their own unique layouts and hazards and different things to bear in mind. So for example, this first one here, there's no lava to worry about at the bottom of the screen, so that's actually a nice sort of gentle entry into the world of Joust, so to speak. Whoops. But you still need to get your head around the core mechanic of jousting. But yes, as you can see, you then move on to different stages, and each stage starts to introduce new things, and each stage has its own little sort of bits of scenery to think about. Some of them have titles. Like this one's called The Blues. I don't know why, but something about this game always reminded me of Lemmings. Lemmings came later, I believe. But I do find myself wondering how much inspiration Lemmings took for some of its level designs. In particular, the sort of hellish levels that were in Lemmings, they remind me very heavily of Joust 2. And it may just be a coincidence, but it's one thing that struck me immediately when I first started playing this. And the other things that we've got in this over the original Joust are we've got an improved soundtrack. So not only do we have the sound effects now, but we also have digitized sound effects. You can hear things like the birds squawking and that sort of thing. We have those sampled explosions, and we have some digitized speech as well. Right on cue. Oh no. Terrible. It's interesting that your score doesn't reset when you continue. So in theory, you could just keep playing this and just get a high score just by being shit over and over. I wonder if there's an option to change that. Because I know that Midway Arcade Treasures does provide some customization options for the various games that are in here. But they tend to mostly be things like the number of lives you start with, or how many points it is to get an extra life and that sort of thing. Oh god, this is so difficult. But that is classic arcade game quarter munchers for you. If they were too easy, then they weren't profitable. And as much as we want to think back on the golden age of arcade games with fondness for the artistry of the design of these games, one thing you have to remember is that arcade games are always sold based on their potential profitability. If you look at arcade flyers, those are always aimed at arcade owners. And they're always like, oh, soar into the skies with hot new profits from Joust 2 or something like that. That's not a direct quote, I just made that up. But it was always that sort of thing. It was always focusing on the potential profits that a new game could bring to an arcade rather than actually talking about how good the game was. Okay, this one... I was going to say, that looked like it was working better just by sitting in one place and just letting the bats come to me, but apparently that didn't quite work out. But the other mechanic I didn't explain, which you may have figured out for yourself already, is in Joust, when you knock a knight off a bird, they drop an egg. And if you don't pick up the egg before it hatches, then another knight will hatch out of that egg and potentially find its way onto another bird. So if you want to clear the levels, you've got to knock the knights off the birds and collect the eggs as well. Now this is an egg wave, where it starts with a load of eggs lying around the place. Ow! I didn't know they could kill you on the ground, that's mean. Yeah, so this stage starts with a load of eggs lying on the ground. So ideally you want to collect as many of them as possible before they hatch. And, of course, deal with all the bastards that are hatching in the meantime. I can't get up there. There's too many of them. Oh, this is really difficult. Yeah, I got quite good at this game at one point. But it's been probably a good 10 years or so since I played this last. At least. Because Midway Arcade Treasures used to be our go-to drunk game. Whereas friends and I used to get together, we used to play board games, we used to drink. And at a certain point in the evening, when we didn't feel like playing another board game, but we still wanted to hang out and do stuff together, we would generally boot up Midway Arcade Treasures. And we would play something. More often than not, we'd end up playing 720, just because we found the sample speech in 720 to be hilarious. Take or die. But, yeah, Joust 2 certainly entered the picture as well, so Midway Arcade Treasures was very much part of our collective culture, I guess you'd call it. Oh god, so much death. But yeah, like I say, at one point I did get quite good at this, but apparently those days are very, very long gone. Get out of here. But can you imagine? Can you imagine playing this in the arcade? And how much money you would have to put into it if you wanted to get anywhere whatsoever? Insane. Absolutely insane. But at the same time, it would be one of those games that you would have bragging rights to your friends over if you could get past level 2. Without spending more than 25p. We're making progress slowly. Oops. I've talked about this with my friend Chris on the Mario Gamer podcast before. which is I always feel a little bit bad when I play a game that has infinite continues and it doesn't reset your score or punish you any way for taking advantage of those infinite continues. Because I sort of feel like you're missing the point of the game side of things then. But Chris's response to that is that, well, you can look at it from a different perspective. You can look at it as you are appreciating the design and the aesthetic aspects of the game without constraining yourself through the mechanics. You're not constraining yourself to saying, I'm only going to play this for 1 credit and never being able to see beyond level 2 or whatever. You can just enjoy the game for as long as you want, and when you're tired of it, you just stop playing. Just treat it as a pure experience rather than a game that you're necessarily challenging yourself. Because I mean, look at my performance here. I am in no way proving myself to be competitive or good at Joust 2. And that doesn't matter. I'm still having a good time. I'm still enjoying playing this. Just because it's a fun game to play. There's aspects of this game that are fun and satisfying to enjoy. I like the sound effects. I like the music. I like the overall look and feel of it. It's just enjoyable to play for a few minutes, and then I'll set it aside, perhaps for another 10 years or so, and then come back to it and enjoy it again. Then it's something you can enjoy in a timeless way. And yes, while it would be nice to be good enough to oh, it's a boss. Actually, didn't know this existed. Yeah, so it's something you can enjoy just as a pure experience. Ignore the score side of things unless you're sort of competing against friends or whatever, or playing in the 2-player mode or whatever it is you're doing. And just enjoy it. That's something I feel like it's very easy to forget that side of things, and I know I do sometimes. Like when I play a modern port of a shoot 'em up, I often find myself thinking, well, I really want to try and 1 credit clear this, without sort of stopping to consider that I need to learn the mechanics first of all. I need to learn how that game plays. I need to understand the stage layouts. I need to memorize enemy patterns. There's all sorts of things you need to do before you can even think about trying to 1 credit clear a shoot 'em up. And it's exactly the same with something like this. So without banging my head against these levels repeatedly, I would gradually learn the things that I need to watch out for, how to deal with various types of enemies. The fact that the knights on the floor can kill you now, which I don't think they could in the original Joust. Maybe that's what the Pegasus is for. I don't know what the Pegasus is for. I don't understand at all. It's something you can do, and that is all I know. The real difficulty with Pegasus is the fact that it can't fly very well. In a game that's all about flying, that's a bit of a problem. But what you gonna do? Careful, warrior. Come here. Come here. Gotcha. Those pterodactyls, if you're wondering, they show up if you've taken too long. Sort of the standard 80s arcade game, hurry up enemy. The other thing worth bearing in mind with this is that the era of Midway and Atari Games arcade releases that this is from, they were extremely harsh on how much playtime you get for 1 coin. And that's something that dates back to things like Gauntlet, which is also on this collection. Like the way that Gauntlet had you constantly counting down life. And the fact that it was quite difficult to heal yourself in Gauntlet. There weren't many opportunities to actually heal yourself in Gauntlet compared to how much life you'd lose on a regular basis. And it's the same with games like Zybots is another good example. The Zybots also has gradually draining health as you're playing through, and it's very quick in Zybots, so you don't have a lot of time to explore the levels, and the levels in Zybots are often quite intricate. So this was very much an era that there were some great games, but the sort of business model behind them was a bit harsh. And that's quite interesting when you think about the trajectory that some other games have taken in more recent years. If you think of mobile games and free-to-play games, they took a very similar trajectory. So in the early days of free-to-play and mobile games, it was very difficult to progress without paying money. It was very difficult to play for more than 5 minutes without paying up money because of things like energy bars and so on. And things like energy bars and stuff are still a thing. But if you look at a modern, free-to-play or mobile game, like a good example is Magikami that we looked at recently on this series. Those are a lot more generous with what you get for free, because that's more inclined to get you interested in playing the game. If a game starts punishing you too early, then you're going to lose interest, and well, you're never going to pay any money into it then. Whereas if a game is generous up front and allows you to experience and enjoy it enough to get a feel for what it's all about and feel like you're making meaningful progress without having to pay anything, then that's a really sort of optimal business model for a lot of these games these days. And it's something that Midway and Atari games hadn't really nailed at this point. They were still trying to sort of maximize the amount of profit you could get out of players with sort of visually impressive games that were exciting to look at, exciting to listen to, and exciting to play, but which weren't necessarily very fair. And I think we're running into that a little bit here with Joust 2. As I say, there are probably some settings you can tweak to make it a bit easier. But these are the default settings we're playing on now. And, well, we're just going to have to live with them for the minute. But I think we will wrap this up soon, because we've been here a while now. We've seen a goodly mix of levels and enemy types and some of these bosses that I didn't know existed. And I have died many a time. Many a time. I guess you could argue that you still have to show a certain amount of skill to get through this, because even if you're constantly continuing, you still have to actually defeat the enemies. So you still have to show at least enough skill to be able to kill the enemies. Whoops. Which is easier said than done. Anyway, one more try. Let's try and defeat this bad boy. And then we'll get out of here. Come on. Peck! No bonus. Apart from the 5,000 you gave me for defeating him. Alright, so this last stock of lives is our last life. Wave 13, the Magistry. And we got Pterodactyl right from the start on this one. That's mean. Interesting. You see, you can seem to be able to kill those bats by backing your ass up onto them. I apologise if you can hear any yelling outside. There have been people having a party or a barbecue or something all evening, and a couple of hours earlier it was all kids screaming, and now it seems to be people yelling at each other. So, I don't know. I don't know if you can hear that. Anyway, the game is over. my game is over. So I'll just leave you with what I always say, which is, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.